Hi, this is Dark Shades, and this is part 3 of Should I Marry or Should I Live Together? Now, the first part 1 and part 2 was taken from Citizens Advice Bureau, The Guardian, and Psychology Today. I amalgamated those three sources together to give you that information. But this part is my own personal view. And for me, I've been married twice before, and both times I didn't live with my husband. I married pretty quickly after I met them. I think it was within 6 months. So I would recommend living together because it's like a trial marriage. And I think if I had lived together with both of my husbands, I think the outcome would have been different. I wouldn't have married them. I think when you marry somebody, you notice all the patterns, you notice the inconsistencies, you know the behaviours, you know what to expect from what not to expect. If they're hiding something, you know. If they're the type to be faithful, you can ascertain that. You can ascertain a lot from living together. I would say, though, I would treat living together like a trial marriage. I would have from the offset an agreement that we are living together for 2 to 3 years, no more than 2 to 3 years, on the premise that we are getting married afterwards. We're not living together indefinitely because to me, living together is a cop-out. It's a cop-out on commitment. And I don't see why any woman would want to look after a man and treat him like a husband when he's not a husband and he can jump ship anytime. I'm not saying you can't jump ship when you're married, but it's much more difficult. So personally, I would definitely treat living in together as a trial marriage. I think during that time, especially if you're young, I wouldn't have any children during that time that you're living together. I think that should also be a part of the agreement. You only have children after you're married. And like I said, with all those legal implications I mentioned in part 1 and 2, you can see why that is. I think that living together can be really, really great because, like I said, you get an insight to the individual, you know how to resolve conflict, you know if the love has grown, if it's developed, and usually it does because there's less pressure. And I also think you're more likely to be yourself in a living-in arrangement. For some reason, marriage puts some kind of subtle pressures on you. And I think that I'm not quite sure why that is. It's almost like you feel you have to do things and if you don't do things, you know, it might end up in divorce and blah, blah, blah. Whereas if you're living together, you don't have those kind of thoughts. So you're much more relaxed. You're thinking, oh, well, we're just living together. You know, we can step if we want. Even though when you enter into a living-in agreement, it should be a commitment. Personally, I wouldn't want to live with somebody unless I'm going to commit to them. And I would commit to them wholeheartedly. I wouldn't expect to be messing around with anybody else. I would treat that person, my live-in partner, like my husband, with a view to him becoming my husband. So that's how, and I think that's how living in relationships should work. I don't think people should just live together indefinitely unless it's for religious purposes. Like I said before, they've got something against formalizing marriage. But like I said, even gay couples, they want to get married. You know, they're not happy just living together. And there's something about marriage that does something. I mean, I got married very young. I didn't realise the importance when I said the words that, you know, I lacked commitment. And to be honest, the second marriage, I'd have to call it a forced marriage, to be honest. So I said it thinking to myself, well, look, I'll do it because you're forcing me to do it, but I'm going to find my way out of it. And that was my logic when I got married. So I didn't have the guts or the strength, and I didn't have what I know now about myself. I didn't have it back then. I just felt intimidated, weak, and all those kind of stuff. So that couldn't work now. But you do have forced marriages. And yeah, it can't be a very nice thing. And I heard on the news today that, I forget which country it is now, but they're forcing victims to marry their rapists. And if it lasts for 3 years, their charges are dropped for raping them. I mean, have you ever heard anything so ludicrous? I'm only sorry I can't remember the country, but I didn't expect to mention it. But it just came to my head when I was thinking about forced marriage. But yeah, I think as long as the two people do an agreement, and you set your boundaries, you do everything you would do as in a relationship. You go in, you set your boundaries, you let each other know your likes and your dislikes, so that way you've got you can tell whether or not you're compatible. All of this should be discussed before you have a living arrangement. Whether you like children, what religion, whether or not you want to go to church, whether you don't like church, whether you want kids, whether you don't want kids, whether you want somebody else's kids in your house or whether you don't. All of these things are key. Whether or not, if the person has kids, how much time is they going to spend with their kids? How much time are they going to spend with you? All of those things matter. You don't think they matter in the beginning, but they do matter. So all of those things should be discussed at the offset. Once you've discussed your needs and your wants and your boundaries, then you can start planning to live together with a view to getting married later, if that is your wish. So that's my 2 pence worth. I hope you found it useful. And this is Dark Shades.